by any means necessary. Lincoln Riley, you've got to protect your untouchables.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Hulkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC your first listen every day. Whether you're going to watch this show on YouTube or wherever you're going to download your podcast, always remember it's free, and always remember I appreciate your support. You can show your appreciation. If you're watching on YouTube, become a subscriber. It's quick, it's easy, it's free. Click that red subscribe button, smash that thumbs up button, and so you won't miss an episode, click that bell notification, and you are covered. Today's episode brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Daily fantasy sports made easy. The season isn't quite over yet. There's still a bowl game to prepare for. In fact, the team is practicing this week. They're under the cone of silence. Nobody is allowed. Not even afterwards. Can't ask any questions, get any answers for interviews. Not sure why. But if I had to speculate, probably because the folks in charge, Lincoln Riley, he doesn't want the media. He doesn't want anybody asking any of the players about the future of the program, especially why, a lot of these players are kind of deciding if they're going to be sticking around. So who's staying, who's going? On that note, at the time of this show's recording, unless somebody else has jumped in, which I don't think it's happened yet, Trojans safety Zamarian Gordon. He's officially entered the transfer portal. The seldom used 6'1", 210-pound redshirt sophomore. He's from Warren High School in Downey, California. He's the latest to make himself available for other programs to contact. Look, he rarely played at USC. He was mostly a special teams kickoff. You'd think he'd at least want to wait around another few days, hopefully. That's me knocking on wood, to see who USC's defensive coordinator is going to be. Again, he's going into his fourth year of college ball. I think at this point, he's looking for a fresh start. So, yes, the USC is still in defensive coordinator limbo. There's still no white smoke coming out from Heritage Hall's chimney yet. And that lets us know whether or not there's going to be the new defensive coordinator has been named. So we're still looking for a new pope. But we do know, Trent Bray will not be offered the job. He is Oregon State's new head coach. Kind of knew that was going to happen once Jonathan Smith took the Sparty job, Michigan State. So here's my question for the segment. That was a long lead in, but I wanted to kind of set the table for you. Are there any untouchables on this USC roster? Are there certain guys, like a top 5, if you were to put together a top 5 or top 10 list of dudes, that Coach Riley has to make sure nobody's touching these guys. They are staying on this roster through thick or thin. We're not going to let them test the grass is greener theory somewhere else. I think the obvious answer should be at the top of everybody's list. He's at the top of my list is Zachariah Branch. Look, he played like a freshman at times, who wants to score every time he touches the ball, and he has that ability, so I understand why. But he also flashed why he was a freshman. You saw freshman mistakes. Look, everybody and their mom wanted this young man on their roster. He was one of the most highly recruited players coming out of high school. Kickoff return, punt return, wide receiver. He scored touchdowns from each of those spots this year. And you can also use him out of the backfield. He is what you call a touchdown maker. He's a joystick. He's one of those X buttons, I guess, that you have on your joysticks. Video game players, let me know if I got that right. Probably didn't. So let's stay on that side of the ball. We know Zachariah Branch is an untouchable. Here's another one. In fact, here's another 5 or 6. Assuming Jonah Monheim is coming back, untouchable, and that entire 2023 freshman offensive line class, untouchable. That's where USC kind of got themselves in trouble. It's not that they had poor offensive line evaluations. That was part of it. The other part of it was keeping those guys on the roster. They all left. So you kept Mason Murphy, who's developing. But who else lately? I mentioned Jonah Monheim's name. They need to start developing their own farm fresh hogs, right? Guys like Elijah Page, Alani Noah, Amos Talalele, Micah Banuelos, Tobias Raymond, all of those guys. I think they're going to need to jump into the portal this year. One more time on the offensive line. I said, go find a plug-and-play, ready-to-go left tackle. But this should be the last year that they have to rely on the transfer portal for the offensive line. Because not only does the 2023 class have some dudes, 2024 has got a few of them as well. Jason Zandamela, and you got Makai Saina, just to name a couple. And I think they're going to go, they might be in line for another one. If I'm forgetting somebody else, I apologize. I'm doing this off the top of my head. But I do think they're going to have to hit that portal until they are 100% confident that those freshmen that I named off from the 2023 class are ready to step up. And they're going to have to make a big step this spring. So on offense, is there anybody else untouchable? At running back? No, I don't think so. I like the guys. You don't want to lose, the freshman Quentin Joyner or a Marion Peterson. But untouchable? Probably not. At wide receiver, I mentioned Zachariah Branch. Maybe Deuce Robinson because of his Mike Williams potential. He's probably an untouchable. And I really did like what Jacoby Lane showed late in the season. Do I make him one of those guys like, you're not going anywhere? I don't know. Wide receivers they're a dime a dozen. And that's not a knock on Jacoby. I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate, so to speak. At tight end, well, stop it. I like USC's guys, but they're not everyday must-have guys until Lincoln Riley makes them everyday must-have guys. And unless Caleb Williams wants to come back, both Miller Moss and Malachi Nelson are off limits. Otherwise, you are going to be using the transfer portal for multiple quarterbacks. You don't want that. You don't want to go into 2024 bringing in 3 quarterbacks onto your roster out of the transfer portal. That's not how you do things at USC. Let's go to the other side of the ball. On defense, up front, Bear Alexander. That's your untouchable up front. And to a lesser degree, slightly lesser, because you want to develop these guys. I think Elijah Hughes. And I'm on the fence with Sam Green. Looked great in the spring, redshirted in the fall. Probably not an untouchable, though. At linebacker, is Tackett Curtis. Is he one of those guys you protect by all means necessary? He had a rough freshman campaign, that's for sure. I think he's a guy you want to keep around and develop, though. He was the only linebacker you brought in with your class last year. You protect those types of players. Braylon Shelby, DJ Peavy, those are 2 guys on that side of the ball you want to keep in the stable. You do not let anybody get close to them. And I'm going to throw another name out there. Older guy, been around for a while. Solomon Tuliaupupu. You need that type of inspiration, not just in the locker room, in the weight room. If some guy's whining and complaining that they're having a rough day, send them over to Solo. Let Solo talk to them for 5 or 10 minutes. If that doesn't change somebody's attitude, get out. You don't belong at USC. So that's how I feel about it. Sorry. Zion Branch, Zachariah's older brother, safety. Christian Pierce, another safety. Those are 2 guys you do not want being touched. You don't want to lose them, not unless they're going to the NFL, and they're not ready for the NFL yet. So who else? Who else did I miss on the defensive side of the ball? Any untouchables? Anybody else on the offense that I didn't touch on? How's that for a play on words? You know where the comment section is. Hit me up. Let me know. Who are the untouchable players that Lincoln Riley has to keep on this roster going forward? Prize Picks is the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They're the easiest and the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players like the pros and the sharks who try and make a living doing this, you're going to pick more than or less than on a 2 to 6 player stat projections and then watch the money roll into your own bank account. And now with basketball season here, check this out. You can now pick a combo projection across football and basketball from their specials league. It's a league that was created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, you can combine a player from the NBA and a player from college football or from the NFL. Points scored, receptions, sacks, whatever that combination comes to, and you put those 2 players together and you bet more than or less than, you win. It's that easy. Prize Picks even offers you a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second half, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege, use code LockedOnCollege, and they will match your deposit up to $100. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. That means Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, covering the top sports stories of the day with their local experts on Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Today on YouTube, subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. The other day, we talked about what USC needs on offense, maximizing their roster spots when they go hit the transfer portal this offseason. I was very clear. I thought I was very clear. I would be really opposed to wasting a scholarship and a 4th quarterback. You do not need 4 scholarship quarterbacks on your roster. 3 is plenty. And then you get a preferred walk-on. And let me make sure I made myself perfectly clear as to why. Because sometimes people hear what they want to hear instead of what they need to hear. Big difference. Let's say Lincoln Riley extends an overture to Cam Ward, Wazoo's quarterback. And let me explain why. According to former Washington Huskies quarterback and Fox TV analyst Brock Heward, his brother Luke coaches at USC, Cam Ward has had at least 10 $1 million transfer offers. You heard me right. At least 10 schools, 10 programs out there are willing to say, hey, come to our school, you got $1 million coming your way. So I guess we can say that USC isn't the only program that tampers, right? Coach Pat Narduzzi? You heard me right. Apparently, like I said, there's 10 programs out there that are willing to say, here's your transfer bonus. Look, if that's the case, and you're Miller Moss and Malachi Nelson, and you just found out that you're not going to be starting in 2024 because Lincoln Riley would prefer having Cam Ward, you're not playing. Not only are you not going to be starting, you're not playing, not unless Cam Ward gets hurt. It also means that USC has to pony up $1 million if that's the market rate. So again, I could see both Miller and Nelson saying, I'm out of here if Lincoln Riley says, Cam Ward, come on in. And if that happens, that means you need to go find 2 more quarterbacks from the transfer portal. And the reason being is you don't have any recruited in the 2024 class. So this is a really big, risky thing. And you know what? You don't rock the boat at the quarterback position. You like Miller Moss. You told us all season long. You told us for the last 2 years you love the guy. Malachi Nelson was your quarterback. It would send a bad message. So, for those of you who are saying, well, you know what? Let's argue. I want to argue with Mark. Competition is better for the team. You bring in the best of the best. If you want to talk about that at wide receiver, running back, offensive line, or any other position, great. I agree with you. I'm on board. But a quarterback, no. You recruit an elite quarterback for each class. You don't go looking for the best quarterback in the transfer portal every year. So, on that note, what is USC's biggest needs on defense via the transfer portal? I think it's probably going to be a lot easier and a lot shorter list to just say where they don't need assistance, right? At this point, right now, we're still waiting for the new defensive coordinator to be named. I mentioned that in the first segment. But at least we know, this much we do know. The scheme is going to be different than the one that we saw the players using the last couple of years. We're not going to be watching players out of position when the ball is snapped, hopefully. Now, if we're going to start up front in the trenches, USC could use what? Another 3 more Bear Alexanders. And when I say Bear Alexanders, I'm talking about disruptive type of players. And wasn't Anthony Lucas supposed to be an impact disruptive player this year after transferring from Texas A&M? Didn't happen. We heard about it in the spring. Coaching staff talked about it throughout off-season, beginning of fall camp, whatever. So apparently, if you go into the SEC, you're not always going to be 100%. It looked like Riley and the staff went 1 for 2 with SEC guys last year. Alexander, huge success. Lucas, hopefully 2024 is the success year. The year before that, Romello Height, he was healthy this year. And he was a part of the rush end group that actually looked better. He helped, but Jamil Muhammad actually took that spot over as the season went along. But those are your 2 primary rush edge guys. And when they weren't in the game, you saw glimpses of Braylon Shelby. That's why you don't touch that guy. You protect him. But there is zero doubt that the Trojans still need an impact defensive end, rush edge, whatever you want to designate him as. A guy that literally can come in, be Captain Chaos, make quarterbacks' lives just miserable. Yes, it's been a while. A guy like, I don't know if he could be this guy, but this is who USC needs to go after in the transfer portal. Just made himself available. Ohio State rush edge, Omari Abor. He's going to enter the transfer portal. He told on 3. 6'3", 255-pound. He's from Duncansville, Texas, and he still has 3 years of eligibility left. He was also one of the most highly recruited, coveted recruits in last year's in the 2022 recruiting class. Excuse me. He was a 5-star for you guys who like to gaze. But look, if Ohio State's coming after you, they've got a pretty good eye on defense. I think it's worth the risk. And when was the last time USC had a legitimate top tier 330, 350-pound guy who just, plays over the ball, nose tackle? It's been a while for one of those too. So look, if Cam Ward is worth $1 million allegedly, what are those snipes worth? What are those 330, 350-pound, nose tackles that just crash and disrupt everything? What are those guys worth if Cam Ward's worth $1 million? I call him a snipe. What's a snipe? Some of you younger guys. If you've ever been on a snipe hunt or led one, you know what I'm talking about. For those of you who don't want to do a Google search, there's no such thing as a snipe. It's like Bigfoot. You hear about them, they're out there somewhere, you just never see them, at least at USC. So what you would do is you would send people on a snipe hunt. Go find what's not out there. Another group, linebacker. Tough watch in 2023 for USC. And believe it or not, it was actually a lot tougher to watch than the group in 2022. Hard as that's believed, I think that position group actually digressed here. So Mason Cobb, Rajon Davis, Eric Gentry, and Tack Curtis, they all have the opportunity to return in 2024. Curtis is probably going to be back. And I think Mason Cobb is going to be back. What about Rajon Davis? What about Eric Gentry? Are they coming back? How about Garrison Madden, Chris Thompson Jr.? Here's one thing we know. Depth at the linebacker position, it's not an issue, right? And I think they have the Jimmies and the Joes. And there's two linebacker guys coming in the 2024 class that are still committed. You got Elijah Newby out of Connecticut, and Desmond Stevens. He committed a couple weeks ago out of Michigan. So again, plenty of guys there. So unless there's like an instant impact linebacker out there in the transfer portal, I'd probably hold off. I'd wait a little bit. Let's see what the new defensive coordinator wants, what he needs. Big difference between want and need. I hope everybody knows the difference between those two words. Everybody wants the hottest girl in the room to be their girlfriend or wife. Nobody needs that. That's the difference. So if Jim Leonhard is going to be the guy, if he's USC's defensive coordinator, just hasn't been announced yet, here's what you need to know. He likes to coach safeties also, kind of like Alex Grinch. We know that the safety room has one less person to evaluate. Zamarian Gordon jumped in the transfer portal. So where will Jalen Smith? Where will Traquan Fagans, Zion Branch, Christian Pierce, where are they going to end up? They could play different positions. But are they going to be free safety, strong safety, nickel? Same thing with Malachi Crawford. He has got to be one of the biggest cornerbacks I think ever invented. He's 6'4", well over 200 pounds. And when that natural maturation process starts to kick in, where you see guys, oh, he was a freshman last year, now he's a sophomore, that's when you see the biggest growth. How big is he going to be next year? I don't know if cornerback is his spot. That's what I'm saying. I think he might end up playing safety. And then you got Kalen Bullock. You got that question? What's he going to do? If I were him, I'd start eating every piece of fatty food I can find. I'd start bulking up because he literally looks more like a cornerback than a safety. Something to think about. I wonder how the NFL's evaluating him. More guys in the safety room. You got Max Williams, he can come back. He's got another year of eligibility. He can mentor his little brother, Marcellus. Plus, Bryson Shaw, he's got another year of eligibility, as well as Anthony Beavers. Are they going to be coming back? Don't forget, you've got 3 safeties coming in this recruiting class. Jarvis Boatwright Jr., Braylon Connolly. You got local stud Marquise Gallegos. Again, plenty of bodies. But now the defensive coordinator just needs to decide if all these guys fit into the scheme. I literally have no idea what's going to happen at cornerback. Despite the talent level, as a group, no bueno. They weren't good. There wasn't a lot of production. I mean, Damani Jackson, Sia Wright, who, by the way, is no longer with the team. Jacoby Covington, who missed, the last half of the season with an injury. Christian Woolen-Wallace, he was USC's best cornerback this year. Last year, Mekhi Blackman. What's the common denominator? CRW, Christian Woolen-Wallace, and Mekhi Blackman, they transferred in. I have a feeling USC's going back there. They probably need at least 2 or 3 cornerbacks that can come in and help right away. Because you have 2 guys coming in. I know Marcellus Williams, he'll be here in the spring. One of the highest rated cornerbacks USC's had in a while. Damani Jackson was another one. Isaiah Rubin from Los Alamitos High School. This is what we know. Dante Williams, he knows how to play the Pied Piper. He can recruit guys like there's no tomorrow. I think the book is still being written, though, on how he develops cornerbacks. So let me know. You know where that comment section is. What else does USC need in that transfer portal on the defensive side of the ball? Let me know. Let your feelings be known. Comment. Be a part of the show. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. And you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you've got to go check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs is going to help you find the right people for your team faster, and they do it for free. You know how easy it is to find a job on LinkedIn? It's also just as easy to create a job posting. And once you do that, take that purple hashtag hiring frame, attach it to your own personal profile. That'll spread the word that you are hiring. And LinkedIn is going to give you really cool tools like screening questions. And that's going to help you navigate, help you find the right candidates that you want to interview and hire. Recruiting the right person for your team means a better product. And it's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1, delivering quality hires versus the leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. So before we get out of here, it's time to play the assistant Moneyball game. Did anybody happen to see Texas A&M's Mike Elko? He's their new head coach. Did you see his contract details? Pretty impressive. It's definitely incentive laden. His base salary, he's gonna suffer, folks. He's only making $7 million per year. Base. Life's rough, right? Man, if you can't sense my sarcasm, I was being really sarcastic. That's not bad. I mean, honestly, $7 million in the SEC, it's still not chump change. But he can make up to $10.5 million if they win the national championship. And by the way, if he needs some spare pocket change, check this out. He'll get $100,000 for making the SEC championship game, $50K if he's named SEC Coach of the Year, $100,000 for National Coach of the Year, and check this out, because remember, student athlete, he'll get another $50,000 if he keeps his team's APR graduation rate above the minimum 960 for multiple years in a row. How's that? This is how Mike Elko can make up to $10.5 million. I told you $7 million base. Make the college football playoff, boom, $1 million bonus. Advance to the quarterfinals, that all of a sudden now prorates up to 1.5. Make it to the semis, $2 million. Advance to the championship game, you now make $2.5 million. Win the whole thing, $3.5 million. So $7 million, win the whole thing, 3.5, boom. You're in Lincoln Riley territory. Not bad, right? But that's not what I wanted to talk about. I want to talk about his pool of money that he gets to set aside for his assistant coaches. He's been given $11 million to play with. Now, I'm not sure, but that sounds like a lot of money, a lot of cheddar to slice up, right? Obviously, the coordinators are going to get the biggest slice. And then you want to make sure you have one of the best strength and conditioning coaches on your staff. So let's say you're setting aside $5.5 to $6 million for those 3 spots. Ballpark, right? You still got another $5 to $5.5 million to split up among your position coaches. I don't think he's going to have any problem hiring who he wants to hire, especially if those assistant coaches believe that College Station can compete in the SEC. So, how much should USC allocate for their assistant coaches? Between Josh Henson and Alex Grinch, what was that? Somewhere north of $3 million combined, maybe $4 million, $3.5 to $4 million, I would imagine. And you got to throw in Benny Wiley, strength and conditioning coach. Those are your 3 most important people on your assistant pool. Then you had guys like Dennis Simmons, assistant head coach, Luke Heward, wide receiver coach, Kyle McDonald, running back coach, Zach Hansen, tight ends coach, Annie's husband. Those are your offensive assistant coaches. On the other side, the new defensive coordinator. you have to assume he's getting at least $2 million, if not more. Then you've got Sean Nua, Roy Manning, Brian Odom, Dante Williams, Taylor Mays. Plus, you've got all the GAs and the analysts on both sides of the ball. This is what it comes down to. The cost of living in Southern California, it sucks. There's no other way to say it. It's expensive. So you need to have a pool of resources that can keep the coaches happy. How much do you think the assistant coaching pool should be in LA? How much should that be? Factoring cost of living versus the other parts of the country. I mean, I think, is this one of USC's biggest challenges? Is this what the holdup is? Getting good assistants that want to coach and live in Los Angeles? Not because the job isn't attractive. It is. But because it costs so damn much to raise a family, let alone take care of yourself. I mean, living on campus, it's an option. Now we have to define what is close to campus. My point, gas is expensive in California. It's north of $4 everywhere. That's on the low end. So if you can find young up-and-comers who are willing to work their way up the food chain, great. But that's going to be a part of, the new guy's responsibility. He's in charge of those defensive coaches that he's going to hire. Does he know any young guns? How big is his Rolodex? Or, if it is Jim Leonard, does he want carte blanche? Does he want a blank check? If my everydayers are making Locked on USC their first listen on Wednesday, you better be. Tell me your thoughts. Hit me up in the comments section. How much should USC be setting aside, especially on that defensive side of the ball? I'll be back with another episode tomorrow. Be talking about a lot of the same stuff. Hopefully, we know who our defensive coordinator is. But until then, make sure you're making Locked on USC your first listen every day. And when you're done here, head on over to wearesc.com. Take advantage of that silly subscription special we got going on. $1 for a month or 50% off for an entire year. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. All right. I'll look forward to seeing everybody on Locked on USC again tomorrow.